welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, we got some stuff to cover this week.
That we do. We recorded. Was it last week? We did a midweek one.
Yes.
I think it was. Yeah, and then we were like, well, we'll see if more stuff starts to pick up in the league, and sure as hell it did. But unfortunately, I got bent over and received the wrath of the flu that's been going around. So that kind of put me on the shelf for a couple of days, but it gave us the opportunity now to compile everything, and we have so much to talk about now.
Yep, absolutely. Do we want to start with some of the older stuff? Older being like 6 days old at this point.
Yeah. We'll kind of start from the furthest away and work our way forward.
All right. Well, one of the first things is that Tony DeAngelo is allegedly on the trading block for Carolina. It sounds like I don't know if they're actively shopping him around, but it sounds like they're done experimenting with it and they wanna move on from him.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like they're actively, trying to move him, but it sounds like more so they've just let kind of teams know that he is available. Should, a team run it? I mean, it's kind of something like the Islanders, where they just got riddled with injuries happening to Pelech and Pulock at the same time, and so they went out and traded a seventh to St. Louis for Robert Bortuzzo. And so I think that's probably something that might happen with DeAngelo if there's a team that gets hit with a couple hard injuries, then maybe they look to Carolina and see if what it might cost to get DeAngelo. And I don't think the price would be super high, given his play, especially this history. I don't know how much that would affect his trade value or whatnot, but
yeah, it's hard to say because we know he can put up pretty solid numbers from the blue line, but this season he's not putting a ton together, and it's also Tony DeAngelo, a guy with a lot of history of locker room problems, and it's difficult to say, is it just his play that they want to move on from, or is there other stuff going on as well that they're trying to keep on the down low while they ship him around?
Yeah, exactly, right. With a guy like that, you never quite know what exactly it is.
Yeah,
it'll just be interesting to see
at this point. So it's
yeah.
hard to imagine that everything's perfectly fine. They're just moving on as an only business decision.
Yeah, and we talked about it in the offseason. He's the first player ever to be bought out in consecutive seasons. So,
yeah,
I think the first one
of those was by Carolina, right?
Yeah, and I think that one was more just cap reasons. And then I think with Philadelphia, it was just they were like, you know what, you were good. Again, cap hits high. No one wanted to take him. Like, he's a good player, but I think he was only making like 5.5 or something with Philly, and I think teams even thought that was too expensive for him. So yeah, now he's back out on the trade block. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up going, or even if he does get moved, because he's on a 1-year deal. So it's not like Carolina's forced to move him because it's a bad contract. Like they could just let him walk at the end of the season if need be as well.
Yeah. They just they'd like to move that room so that they could bring in somebody at the deadline, because Carolina definitely sees themselves as a real contender, and I know a lot of people do. I don't think they're doing as good as they normally do in the regular season right now.
Yeah, no. And again, that's just goaltending for them. Like, that's just the one thing that I think they're really
goaltending. They're right beside the Oilers for having some of the roughest goaltending in the league so far.
Yeah. What do we got next here?
Geez, we got 3 kind of scary injury looking plays this week, so I guess we might as well get one out of the way. We'll start with the first one that happened, the Dylan Larkin injury. Thankfully, I saw he has not been taken off IR, but I believe yesterday he was skating. at practice. So that's obviously really good. So I don't remember all the players involved, but I believe it was against the Senators with the Red Wings in Detroit,
Yeah.
and they were battling for position in front of the net. And I believe one of the guys that
It was
was playing him
Matthew
was Matthew
Joseph.
Joseph.
Yeah, so he
And
kind of pushed Larkin a little bit, and then Larkin kind of made awkward contact with, I think his name's Parker Kelly, who was also in front of the net, and then kind of bumped into him awkwardly, and then that, unfortunately
yeah,
knocked Larkin unconscious.
Larkin got pushed forward from behind. Just standard cross checks in front of the net when the guy's
Yeah,
defending him. Pretty standard stuff. But his head
yeah.
went forward right as the other guy turned around, and he kind of turned around with his arms slightly up, and it just happened to like unintentionally punch, but not an extended punch, just literally hand into the face, and like Larkin just immediately went unconscious. I don't know if
It's
I've
just a
ever
freak
seen a
accident
player.
play.
Yeah, I've never seen a player fall down unconscious like that and like sprawled out. Like usually, like even if they're really injured, they're like, kind of doing the UFC, like covering their head, huddling up. He was completely out on the
Yeah,
ice.
yeah,
And a
he
lot
was
of the
out.
guys immediately recognized it. Like Senators, Red Wings, they were all calling for the medical staff right away.
No, one guy wasn't.
Did one guy was standing there figuring out what was going on. He was neither of those two guys that we mentioned
Artem
involved.
Zub.
Artem Zub, he was standing there
Zub.
going, "What happened?" And David Perron just looked over and decided this fucker must have did it. And he goes over, he
Yeah.
cross-checked Zub right in the face and
Chicken shit stuff by Perron.
kept going for him afterwards. And yeah, it was wild watching the feed that the fans saw live at the game, or if you were watching the game live, because you didn't see that, and they didn't show it on any of the replays at the beginning because everyone's worried about Larkin. So they
Yeah.
announced the penalties, and it's like 2 minutes for something, and an extra 2 minutes for Ottawa, and then an ejection, and a game misconduct for David
I think
Perron.
he got a
Everyone's
match
like,
penalty,
yeah,
which is
everyone's
like
wondering,
intent to injure.
yeah,
So
they
everyone
gave
was
it to him
very
for intent to
confused.
injure, and everyone's like, wait, that's the wrong team. What did Perron do? And then they show the replay, and you're like, oh, you can't just cross-check somebody in the face. He wasn't even the guy
Well,
involved.
it wasn't even that. It was more in like the side of the neck and head to a player completely unaware that Perron was coming in to
Yeah.
take him down like that.
Yeah, and I definitely get it. Like, I got to imagine, especially Larkin, but like seeing any player on your team laying on the ice like that's got to be really scary. But
But this is
you
and this
can't
is
do
my
that.
well, and this is my thing is I'm not a big David Perron fan. I think he's a fantastic player, but the thing I always go back to is I believe it was I think it was in 2019 when San Jose and St. Louis were meeting in the playoffs. I think it was kind of around that time, and David Perron came out and was talking. When was it? It was back a couple years ago when they were playing San Jose before, and Joe Thornton hit David Perron with an elbow. I don't know if you remember that.
I do not.
Okay. And anyway, so Perron got a pretty bad concussion at the time.
Right.
And he said that concussion and whatnot like kind of ruined his life. From the actions of Joe Thornton taking a cheap shot on him. And while this is Perron's first suspension, he kind of has a history of kind of doing cheap stuff like this. So it's like, how can you call a player out and say, hey, you kind of ruined my life and all this, but then you go out and do something to Zub that could have, ended his career potentially.
Yeah. And I definitely don't want to. We're not absolving him at all. Like, you can't do that shit.
Yeah.
But I definitely can see a way. Like, we've both played hockey. I can definitely see ways that you can think, yeah, idiot, don't do that. But also, like, if I saw you go down in front of the net and I saw you splayed out the way Larkin was, dude, there's no ounce of my brain power that is being used rationally.
Mm-hmm.
And
No, and that's fair.
yeah, especially a guy Larkin who has a history of neck injuries, which is really unfortunate. Like I said, this
Yeah.
happened 6 days ago, and he has been skating since. So don't know if he'll return super imminently, but it seems like there's no lasting damage or anything. He did
Yeah.
skate off on his own power, I believe, or at
I,
least
th-
he
I heard,
skated
he was
off.
stretchered off.
I
So we might need to double check.
Okay, I will check that really quick.
Because I only saw the highlights one out. I wasn't actually watching the game, but I remember getting a news thing that he was stretchered off. But I don't know. That could be wrong. I'm not entirely sure on that.
I kind of thought that he made it off on his own power. No, he was stretchered off. You're right.
Okay, he was. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that he's back out and skating already is a very good sign that it's nothing long term, and that he's already making a pretty good recovery.
Yeah. Dylan Larkin skating, quote, brings joy and happiness to Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, and
that's
with
from
Perron,
the Detroit Free Press right there.
Yeah, and with Perron, those plays are always just scary when you've got a guy down on the ice injured, and then an altercation starts afterwards of guys getting into it right where the injured player is.
Strange to watch. There was I think 2 guys from each team, obviously Zub and Perron, and then 2 other guys trying to break it up, and the refs, and all of the other guys were just standing over by Larkin, like,
yeah,
what the hell's going on over there? We're trying not to fight over here, but like we kind of want to be involved. It was a really weird situation, and I don't know which guy did it, but actually I don't think we mentioned during the play, like after Larkin went down, somebody else got cross-checked from the Senators and kind of like fell on him for a bit. Or honestly, it might have been one of the Red Wings players. There was so many guys in front. Like, somebody just unfortunately got shoved and kind of like fell on like Larkin's legs for a second. It didn't look like it did anything bad, thankfully. They only kind of half fell on him, kind of caught themselves. But, when a guy's going down unconscious like that, you want to be really careful. So, thankfully, he's all right.
Yeah, and then obviously Perron, the 6-game suspension.
I did not see that. I had been looking all over waiting for it to show up, but that's good to hear that he got 6, actually.
Which, I mean, I think it's fair. I see the reason a lot of people don't, just because he doesn't actually have a history of suspensions or anything, but that's a clear intent to injure a guy.
I will say, given the precedent they have set over the past several years, that's way too high. But I think that's what it should be. For a first-time offender doing something this heinous, it should be 6 games. And if a guy like, Raffi Torres was to pull something like this out, it should be 30 or something, If it's a guy with a history, absolutely throw the book at him. But like, just because it's a guy's first time, like there was nothing about it that was an accident. He was throwing the stick right in the dude's face. Like, set the precedent high, so hopefully guys just don't do it,
And this, what we've been preaching is the NHL player safety, to start cracking down on this stuff. And then when it starts happening, now people are upset and don't agree. And it's like, well, which way do you want it?
Yeah.
Like, I think this is good that they're holding players more accountable.
Yeah. And I think part of it is because of, like I said, we have 2 of them are definitely bigger things to talk about. Big, like, fights, injuries type things that went on within a 2-day span. And I think a lot of people were like looking at the league like, you guys got to freaking police this shit. Like, these players are just out there doing it themselves because they don't feel safe.
Yeah.
Do we want to...
Speaking of doing it themselves.
Yeah, let's roll right into this next one. Let's talk about Nick Cousins.
Turtle Boy.
I I'll be honest. Do you know how long he's been with the Panthers, Nick Cousins?
I think it's been about two or 3 years.
Okay,
I can
I
pull it
wasn't
up here
sure.
just to double check.
I wasn't sure if he was there when, in the back-to-back years, Tampa played Florida in the playoffs. Because I really don't remember this guy much. I believe he
This is
was
his
there for the
second
second
year with
one,
Florida.
but he.
His first year was last year.
Oh, okay, so he wouldn't have been in the playoffs at least. But I really didn't like this guy has very little name recognition for me. There was a lot of people that I was seeing that are like, uh, we like Boston fans who are like, this Florida team has Matthew Tkachuk, Lomberg, Sam Bennett, and Nick Cousins is still my least favorite guy on this team. Before this hit, like there was a lot of apparently he has a bit of a rep for being a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he had a absolutely horrendous boarding hit on Goodbranson. Goodbranson was flying down to grab the puck behind his net. He was swinging around. It wasn't even a stop. And Cousins just pushed him, and he went absolutely flying into the boards. It looks like he got knocked out for a bit. Like he just laid there for a bit and then kind
Dude,
of
he's
woke
like
up.
the Undertaker.
Yeah, he got up and started swinging afterwards after he kind of like shook it off for a sec.
I think he just had to figure out what the hell was going on for a second and just
Yeah.
get his bearings back.
Afterwards, he said it felt like he had been in a car crash, which I don't doubt it. It looked like it. Somehow, that 5-minute major for boarding got reduced to 2 minutes on review. I don't know how that happens.
Yeah. Right. I can't even fathom how they made that decision.
That's probably where a lot of it starts, obviously with Cousins doing the hit, but now he only got 2 minutes. Like if I accidentally get my skate blade under a guy's foot and trip him, I'm getting the same penalty as that. That's garbage.
Yeah. Exactly.
So later in the game, Goodbranson's out there, and Cousins is coming along the left wing, and Goodbranson clearly sees that it's him, and he just drops his stick, goes in for a hit, drops his stick right before the hit, and just grabs him and throws him to the ground, playground style. There was no hit.
And starts feeding him.
He just threw him to the ground and started punching at him on the ground. And when Cousins' helmet was off and he was turtling and his head was right next to the ice, Goodbranson kept feeding him.
Which you never like to see that. Like,
no, I absolutely detest both sides of it. Like this is a weird one for sure because neither of those have any place in the sport. Like if something like the Nick Cousins hit, it like that looks similar happens but is accidental, I get it, but everything about it was purposeful. And Goodbranson, like if you want to throw him around, hit him, hell, there's even a place in hockey for fighting, even if he wants to take the instigator and run at him head on and throw his gloves down and start chucking hands. But to just start punching him while he's on the ground, like he's defenseless, he can't block, his head is right next to the ice. If he gets punched into the ice, dude, like this gets really bad really fast.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, neither guy sustained any major injuries somehow. I think Goodbranson's fine. He played the rest of the game, but
no, he got ejected.
Oh, sorry, I meant after he got boarded. Yes, he got ejected. And it's super goofy looking because somehow Cousins' boarding got reduced to 2 minutes, and Goodbranson gets a 10-minute misconduct, a 2-minute minor for instigating, a 10-minute game misconduct, and a 5-minute penalty for fighting. So he got 27 penalty minutes, retaliating to a 2-minute minor.
Yeah, and so then Florida went on and they got a 7-minute power play.
Yeah, and
out of that. The thing that bugs me is just the fact that so the initial hit, Goodbranson gets up and kind of gives Cousins a little bit of a push, and Cousin immediately just drops to the ice and turtles up. And it's like, if you're going to throw cheap hits like that, you got to face the music. And I get Goodbranson's way bigger than Nick Cousins, but if you're going to run a guy like that from behind, I'm sorry, that's not a hockey play.
No.
like you can't just turtle and expect everything to be fine.
No, he
Like,
shoved him in the numbers, flying at speed, with intent not to just knock him over, but intent for him to fly into the boards. Like, I
yeah,
I cannot believe they reviewed it and took it down to 2 minutes. That's just horrendous from the refs. And I venture to say that if he got the 5 minute major, then I don't think Goodbranson goes after him like that. I think he saw it was a 2 minute minor and was like, "Oh, okay, we're just allowed to do whatever the fuck we want," and he went for
yeah,
him.
yeah. The refs let that game get out of control, so that there is partial blame on the refs for
Yeah,
sure.
this happening on back-to-back days with the Dylan Larkin situation was like, it didn't help that there was not a ton of highlights from those 2 days. So I was just like, man, like there's just nothing happening but absolute garbage in hockey right now. Like what's going on?
Yeah, yeah. It
Um,
was an interesting couple of days with those two situations
yeah.
happening.
So imagine my surprise later that night. It is the Ducks versus the Jets, and Kyle Connor takes a knee on knee with Ryan Strome. This one's definitely not near as bad as the other two, I don't think. Um, I guess
The
I'll just ask
injury
you
is,
outright.
but
I was gonna say, do you think Reinstrom did on purpose? I saw some clips. I never really saw a slow mo.
I I don't really think so. Um, with those ones, it's always tough to tell because we see it happening so often. Of a guy gets burned to the side and they do whatever they can to try and stop the guy, and sometimes they stick their leg out
Yeah,
unintentionally, even just because it's
sure.
just
Most
instinct to
guys
like, oh, I
surely are
gotta
going
try
for a
and
trip in that situation, right?
yeah,
Not a knee on knee. What psycho is like? I'm gonna throw my kneecap into their kneecap.
yeah, exactly. So
You like
I
to
don't
think they're
think it
better at
was
handling than that,
intentional. Yeah,
but
and then it just sucks that Kyle Connor's now out for I
yeah.
think it's like 6 to 8 weeks.
I think that's what I saw. So 6 to 8 weeks for Kyle Connor. Hopefully he's closer to 5 weeks and can
Yeah,
make a full recovery because his skating, especially with that knee injury, his skating is incredible. So you'd love to
yeah.
see him be able to be back to form when he gets back. And Winnipeg needs him. He's an incredibly important piece to that team, and they are doing really well right now. So
Yeah. Yeah, but no, I don't think it was intentional, and I don't think I saw some people being like, "How did Strom not get suspended?" It's like, well, that's. I just don't think that's a suspendable play, just because
before
I
we
don't think it was on purpose.
Yeah, it definitely looked like mostly accidental. If it was purpose, it was very subtle. Um,
Yeah,
Before we move on, I just wanted to touch because I don't think we talked about it. Did I guess Cousins couldn't because it was reduced to 2 minutes. Did Good Branson ever get a suspension?
he got a 1 game suspension
Okay, so he got 27 minutes of penalties and a 1 game suspension. Uh,
for taking matters into his own hands because the rest couldn't.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I that boarding looks so vicious.
and that's
I
also
really wish both guys got penalized a lot because what Goodbranson did is still really bad. But
yeah. But that's the thing is like I think it was that like the 2 days like right before, maybe the day before and after, there was two very similar hits with Evander Kane making one on Edmonton and then Eric Robinson on Buffalo. And Kane got nothing for his, and Robinson got 5 in the game. And all three were very, very similar hits. And it's like, how do you have three separate calls? Like the only three calls that could be made on basically three identical hits. It's like eventually, yeah, it was just crazy to see that the refs none of them agreed on which way to call it, basically.
yeah, they really should get all these refs together and go over a little bit of tape and be like, all right, we all agree that this is this. We all agree this clip is this. Try and get everyone on the same page. I get it. They're humans. They interpret it different, but
The one that's the worst is just the Nick Cousins one because it was a 5 minute major. The refs watched it back and said, no, that's only 2 minutes. And it's like, how? How can you justify that? That's 2 minutes after watching the replay
I
over and
can't.
over again.
Yeah, I can't imagine watching that in slow mo sped up, regular speed. I can't imagine any
In
scenario where that
reverse.
doesn't look like a 5-minute major at least.
Yeah.
And you know what? That also, it it's clearly vicious enough that even if like whatever, it should still be 5 minutes probably. And now you've given the league a chance to look at it on their own and see if they want supplemental discipline.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very, very weird. Department of Player Safety's kind of on the rise in the stocks, and the refs are continuing to go down, but are we surprised?
Yeah.
Not really.
Not
Not
exactly.
really.
But with all that out of the way, we can get to some better stuff.
Yeah.
So the NHL announced that they're revamping the skills competition. We talked about it a bit before. They have some celebrity guests coming in. They're going to help pick the teams a bit. They've also announced they're doing a $1 million prize for
The winning
I think
player.
it's just the winning player of the skills competitions, not the All-Star games. That's $500K to them, $500K to a charity of their choice as well. They outright said the other day that they want it to go back to just find who's the most skilled. It really read in some of their press releases as if they were we want to see guys take it seriously. We don't want to see you put on a funny hat and then do a dance and then take a shot. We want to see you do something freaking cool. And it comes across a little bit stick in the muddish, but it's totally going to lead to a better product in the All-Star competition, I think.
I think so, somewhat. But also just the fact of I'm just trying to find where the new rules are for it. I can't seem to find it right now. The thing I just don't like is like, what is it? I can't find it here, but it's only like 12 players. So it's not even like all the players at the All-Star weekend doing it kind of like before, where every guy had the opportunity at least to be like, oh, I want to be in this event or this one, and it's just now it sounds like it's going to be
same guys in every event then.
Yeah, so it sounds like the league is going to pick 8 players, and then the other 4 will be voted on by fans, but the fans can only vote on they can only vote on players who are going to the All-Star game. So it's like you can't get like a John Scott showing up or anything.
Right.
Which I think is just weird that it's
if
only
they
12
really
players,
want somebody
players
else,
spanned across 8 events.
Yeah.
So it's like, how can you really be like, oh, he's the hardest shot winner when Buddy, who's not participating, very clearly has a harder shot? Like
we're probably not going to see if they only have 12 spots, there's already going to be Quinn Hughes, there's already going to be Cale Makar, and from Tampa, there's going to at least be Kucherov. We're probably not going to see Hedman in the hardest shot competition.
Well, and
McDavid's
we'll see McDavid. Because McDavid kind of helped build this.
Yeah.
The NHL kind of picked his brain, and
he did a lot.
And of course, I mean,
it's good to hear
no shot McDavid, but of course, he came up with this because let's be real, McDavid probably ends up winning this.
Yeah.
Like you look at fastest skater, stick handling, passing, accuracy, shooting. Like McDavid probably.
At the least, he can win those. He clearly has the skill to.
But then the funny part is,
favorite.
Yeah. So how it works, I think, is, the top 8 advance to. I don't exactly know how it works. But from what it is they start out with the 12 players, then it goes down to 8, and then it goes down
Oh, it's like an elimination
Uh,
type thing?
yeah, so every player, all 12 take place in the fastest skater, hardest shot, stick handling, one-timers, passing, and accuracy shooting. Kind of the regular
Yeah.
um, skills ones. And then the top 8 advance to the shootout. And now I don't know how that fully goes down. And then the top 6 advance to the finals, which is an obstacle course, which I'm assuming is going to be, weaving through stuff with a puck, and like that's right up McDavid's alley.
Yeah.
Um, but the thing
Probably the
I
one
don't
where
like,
they have to saucer the puck like, 2 feet up through the little mail slot or whatever. The one they did,
yeah,
1 or 2 years ago.
the thing I just don't like is again, it's only 12 players, so it's and it's the fact that it's fans can vote in. So like you can probably assume that McDavid and Draisaitl and like McKinnon, Makar are going to be in. So to
Yeah.
have 4 of the 12 players from 2 teams in, like if they're doing it, you almost have to be like it's capped off at 1 player from each team. And then also, where do you get anything
Yeah.
for the goalies? Really, you only get to see them in the shootout that takes place.
Yeah, that too.
So, like, I get what they're doing, and I understand it. It's kind of nice to see them actively trying to shake things up and make the All Star Weekend better. But I don't know. I feel like and I guess we get more of those player interactions, whatnot, with the draft that'll take place. Um, but I don't know. I like being able to see a lot of the guys who are present there. Uh,
Yeah, it was neat having
take their
because
shot at it.
last year had to be one of the most active All-Star games or All-Star weekends where like they had so many guys involved. They had like 5 guys in each thing and they had every single one of the regular, the fastest skating, the hardest shot, etc. But then they also had like the hockey golf one. They had the one where the guys were saucering passes onto the target over by the Bellagio. Like they had a whole
Yeah,
bunch of extra things. They had the shooting one on the beach, and they had like anywhere from 5 to 10 guys for each of those as well. Like you really got to see a lot of the personality around the league.
I think the only problem with those ones is that it ruins the in-person atmosphere,
Yeah,
just because they kind of show those ones sporadically throughout it, so then it's like everybody's singing in the arena now. The players are just kind of hanging out on the ice waiting while it's all shown on the jumbotron, which it's like a 20 to 25-minute segment in its entirety, and
yeah.
everybody's all just kind of sitting there watching, and so it kind of takes away from the atmosphere there.
I almost just wonder if you just do the in-person stuff and that's it. You don't show it to the people in the arena, the other stuff. They can go find it online. They can DVR it. Like it's better than staring up at the jumbotron watching like an entire episode of TV's worth of
Yeah,
that stuff.
and I mean, even just off the top of my head right now, I could think of a better way. You could do it still the same way as before, where players can pick, and like you could tell players, "Hey, you get to pick one of those original 6 events to go into," and then you could be like, "Okay, hey, the top 2, first and second place from each one advances to the shootout." So then you've got 12 in there, and then you could be like, "So 12 are now in the shootout." I don't know how they're going to do the shootout exactly. I don't know if it's like elimination style or whatnot. But then you could do like the top 6, so half go to the obstacle course, and then you at
Yeah.
least give every player there the chance to take part in some way in the All Star Skills competition.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways they could do it. And do you know when the All-Star is that coming up in like about a month? They usually do it in
It's
January, right?
it's it's yeah, it's usually like the end of January.
Okay. So we'll see how it develops as we get even closer. But I'm at the very least they're really the past few years they've been trying to reinvent with it, and I'm figuring it's only a matter of time until eventually they land on something that sticks.
Yeah. Yeah, more than anything, I'm just glad that they're actively trying to improve the All-Star weekend because it was just becoming such a stale, repeat it year after year. So it's nice to see them trying to change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm not a fan of it, but I'm still very happy that the NHL is actively trying.
Yeah. Next up, we got something here that the Blues fired Craig Berube, naming Bannister their interim head coach. 3 head coaches have been fired this season, and 2 of them were one of our Jack Adams picks for the year.
Yeah, you had Berube, Woodcroft,
which is which is a tough soak for us.
Yeah, that's
But
tough. Yeah, that's not a good look for us. But I
mean,
think St. Louis
Berube
started
was
off
never really a
pretty
great pick for me
decent.
anyway. That was
no.
a tough sell anyway, but I am still surprised they fired Woodcroft in Edmonton.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure why Berube is necessarily fired because I don't think St. Louis was going into the season expecting to be a playoff team. Like, they're one of those teams that I think needs to just be like, hey, we got our cup. That core is now kind of gone. Petrangelo's gone. Tarasenko's gone. O'Reilly's gone. And so it's just time to hit the reset and start that rebuild. Because the way that they keep going, they're gonna run into a situation that unfortunately the Flames are kind of in.
I was gonna say the Flames.
They're gonna start making drastic moves because it's very clear that they've got playoff aspirations in their mind, and that's where they're going to run into making decisions that are going to hinder their future when eventually they're like, okay, we need to rebuild. And it's like, now look at all the bad, pieces we've got here and the things we're stuck with because we are so sure that we could go on a magical run again. And it's not possible with that team.
No, it's pretty tough. And I think they might trick themselves into thinking that it's a really good chance to go in because they're in 5th in the Central. They're only 3 points behind Nashville, who also you wouldn't expect to be in the playoffs. They're 7-3-0 in their last 10. But they're 6 points back of Dallas, and I don't see them catching Dallas. I don't see them catching Winnipeg, Colorado.
No.
Yeah. And I definitely don't see them beating any of those teams in a 7-game playoff series.
And then even if they do, you've got to play the next one and then the next one. Like it
would be a even if they run for sure.
Yeah, even if they snuck into the playoffs, it's like that. It just with the team they have, it's not in the cards for them, and so I really, and this is one of those times where, because I'm very against the whole, reduce, reuse, recycle of coaches in the NHL, where it's just, oh, we fired our guy, let's just grab the biggest name out there who's failed with their most recent team.
It's insanely incestuous. There's 32 teams and maybe 40 head coaches for the NHL.
Yeah,
maybe.
And this is one of those times where, and this is one of those times where it's like, okay, the next team that fires their coach should immediately be calling Berube because he's one of those guys that it's like, he brought the Blues their first Stanley Cup, and he did everything he could with what he was given from that point on, and it just didn't work, and that's no fault of his own. And he could go to a team with a good roster and could win a cup with them. So it'll be very interesting to see, where he ends up landing, because he's definitely not going to be out of the league. By the beginning of next season, he'll be behind an NHL bench again.
Absolutely. Sticking with some of that, so Jordan Kyrou, he was interviewed yesterday early in the day, probably after the team's morning skate, I assume. And he was asked on, he was really cornered by this question. It was not
Yeah.
well put by the media at all. They really tried to corner him into a question, basically saying, "What did you think about Berube, and why do you think he was fired?" He was trying to get the guy was clearly trying to get Kairu to say, "We played bad and he got fired because of it," and Kairu didn't want to, and I don't think he should have to, and so he really just said no comment, and a lot of people took this as at this no comment as he did not like Berube. He's what Kairu said was no comment. He's not my coach anymore. And
Yeah.
people took this hard, especially Blues fans. They were furious online the other day, and they let him know during their game. Uh, Kairu got booed when they announced the opening lineup. He was booed every time he touched the puck, whether on the power play or normally. He was booed when they announced that he got an assist on on the go ahead goal. He and they like this is all in St. Louis. He's getting booed by his home fans.
Mm-hmm.
And he was not even close. He was legitimately in tears during his post-game interview. And he said
Yeah.
that it was the toughest game he's ever played. And that's just wild that they would turn
To
on
have your own
him.
fans.
Yeah, I'm super disappointed in Blues fans, man. That's
I
so uncool. This is one of your best. I would argue your best player. He had an assist and
mm,
was a +3 that night at home in a 4-1 or 4-2 victory, and he said it was one of the hardest games to ever play because the fans completely turned on him because he wasn't. He didn't say that he absolutely loved Berube in some other interview.
yeah. So I don't think it's fair for Blues fans to boo Kairu. Um, but I can definitely 100% see their frustration with him. Um, just on the fact alone of like, he probably should be like, yeah, you know what? It's on us that he got fired. That's what many of other players say. And I think it's the fact that it was Jordan Kyrou because he's just beginning that really big contract and he is severely underperforming for that contract. I think if it was a guy like Robert Thomas, who is right around a point per game, I don't think Blues fans really bat an eye too much at it. I think it's just the fact that Kyrou's supposed to be their, their big guy going forward, and he's underperforming and just kind of really didn't take any ownership on it. Um, but again, I like the booing is unnecessary. I can see their frustration.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
in
And
my
when you
opinion,
buy
I
a ticket
don't.
to a game, you're allowed to boo what's going on. You're allowed to cheer. You're
Yeah,
allowed to boo, but like booing your own dude is pretty harsh. Booing him from before puck drop to throughout to the end of the game,
yeah,
like you know what? You have just as much right to boo as he has right to ask for a trade out if he doesn't like it in
yeah,
St. Louis.
yeah,
And I
exactly.
will not feel sorry for Blues fans at all if he wants out because like year one of an 8-year contract and you getting booed like that at home, like that's
Yeah,
tough. And like I definitely get what you're saying with the underperforming. A lot of people have pointed that out, but people seem to be expecting a lot from him. He's a bit below what he should be putting up, but like two years ago, 75 points, 74 games, just over a point per game. Last year, 73 points in 79 games, 6 points in a full season, under a point per game. Right now, he's got 18 points in 29 games, so he's definitely on a lower pace than last year. But like, it's not like he's not putting up any numbers.
yeah. I think
18 and
it's more.
29. He's got a zero point 0.7 points per game, something like that.
Yeah,
Um, it's I would definitely expect, Calgary to be booing Huberdeau over a performance than the Blues fans on Kairu.
I think it more than anything, it really just speaks volumes to how much Blues fans just loved and adored Craig Berube. And I mean, why wouldn't they? Like
Yeah.
he was again the coach that brought him their first Stanley Cup and whatnot, and he was, maybe aside from Kairu, loved by the players. Like there's many players that have spoken very highly of him.
Yeah.
So potentially a big part of it could just be that, Blues fans are more so standing up for Berube, who, can't really speak on it anymore because he's fired and gone. But
Yeah.
it's a messy situation for the Blues now.
It it's just it sucks that this guy cornered him into the conversation. The reporter cornered Kairu into this because uh it had been documented before this that Kairu and Berube, didn't have a great relationship. It worked, but it wasn't like, some guys, they
Mm-hmm.
go to war for their coach, and it was public knowledge that he did not. And you know,
Yeah.
I see so many people online being like, "That's what happens." Kyrie just had to say that it was his fault, and I thought it was fairly mature to not, first of all, not straight up lie, but also, he didn't rag on him either, even though they didn't like each other much. He said he just gave him a no comment, tried to move on, and people people really took that in a different way than when I saw the interview. And yeah, I've
I
seen
th-
Blues fans all over the internet being like, "Yeah, it's happening because we love Berube so much." But
yeah, I
if
think
if
even
you're
if
not
Kyrie
careful,
just
you're gonna
said,
run Kairu out of town.
yeah, I think even if Kyrie just responded to it and just said no comment, I think would have even been better. Um, but
Then
yeah, it's just
he's not my coach anymore.
yeah, just being like I'm not, yeah, just all that. I think even just being like no comment, I think would have even, I think fans would have been okay with that. But I think
Hmm.
basically, I think the way a lot of them just interpreted it was him just being like, you know, he's not my coach. I'm not going to talk about him. I'm moving on, type of thing. I think it's kind of the way it
Yeah.
maybe got interpreted. Um, but again, if you're a Blues fan and you're booing Kairu, again, don't be shocked if eventually he just says, you know what, you guys don't want me here. I'll gladly go play somewhere else.
Yeah, like there's for a guy that Blues fans really talk about like he's dead weight. There was a lot of people
Yeah.
online that were like, there was all kinds of Flames fans being like, if you guys don't want him, we'll take him. Like there's fans of every team being like, yo, I hope if he's on the market, I hope we pick him up because
And it'll be interesting to see, but like if he asks for a trade, how much does it kind of handicap the Blues in making a trade and kind of back them into a corner? Because okay, yeah, sure, he did ask for a trade out, so you kind of have to shop him, but at the same time, he's locked in on an 8-year deal, so you're not forced to move him right away. And the team that's getting him, that you've got him locked in for the foreseeable future. So it'd be interesting to kind of see if a trade happened, like what the potential return could be if he was
yeah,
to ask for a trade
I
out.
would say it it really
Because I
depends.
think that's the only way.
It's so strange because we see so many situations where the ball is in the player's court, the ball is in the coach's court, the the ball's kind of in the fans' court, which
Yeah,
is really weird. Like if they could go to their next home game, everything could play out normally. He could be like, "Thank God they don't hate me. Everything's fine." Or next home game, they could boo him even louder now. And like if he was upset before, if he gets the crap booed out of him again, like he might be like, "All right, this fucking sucks. They're gonna boo me for 8 years. Get me out of here."
yeah,
And his play is gonna tank. He's got a 8.125 million contract until 2031. You can't have a guy playing badly for that much money. Like if he asked for a trade out and he was still getting booed, you'd have to do something because you'd have to move him before his trade stock plummets.
yeah,
So I'm hoping that they don't boo him again next time. Hopefully, they let him have it and they feel satisfied and they're done with it. I believe in his post-game interview where he was in tears, he apologized for the comments on Berube, which I imagine he was just doing damage control because he was upset the fans were pissed at him. But
yeah.
yeah, hopefully things turn around for him because that that was a tough interview to watch, man.
Yeah,
He was in tears. He was saying, I love playing in St. Louis so much, and to hear them booing us in a victory where we had a good game, it like, dude, that just breaks your heart, man.
yeah. If anything, like Blues fans should be celebrating a win. First win of their new head coach for the time being. I think he was named as just an interim head coach. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, like he comes in and they get a win. So I think more so focus on that and be happy for that rather than pulling down one of your best players and making him feel bad about himself.
Yeah, definitely. Um, we got just a few other things here to talk about. I think most of them were last night. Um, Tampa Bay last night broke Edmonton's, I believe it was 8-game win streak.
Yeah,
I was the one of the commentators said this at the end of the game after the empty netter by Stamkos at the end, and it shocked me just as much as it shocked the other guy on commentary. But that was Stamkos's first 4-goal game of his career,
yeah.
which
Almost had
is,
5.
yeah, which is absolutely wild. Um, three, one was an empty netter at the end. 3 very strange goals. The first one, pass went into the middle on the power play. It got bumbled from the pass. It bounced around like 4 guys. Nick Paul just shoved it out to the side. Then Stamkos got it in while the goalie was half not looking. The other one, he like batted out of the air from the side of the net. It was like an impossible angle. And then he went bar down for the hat trick from almost the blue line, just inside.
Yeah,
That that was a really fun game to watch for sure.
got it done multiple ways.
Yeah. Nikita Kucherov in that game being the first player in the season to reach 50 points.
Yeah.
Mc, McDavid and him were both on fire. That was a
So
lot to watch
that's the thing I
offensively.
wanted to get into because Edmonton fans love to spew stuff. When they're winning because you got the 2 best players in the world. But I thought it was so funny the amount of Oilers fans that I saw online are saying like, you know, um, when people try and troll and be like, oh, you guys will fall off soon and be right back to where you were before this win streak, and the amount of Oilers fans that are now being like no, because we have a healthy McDavid now, we're good, and it's like that speaks volumes. If I'm not saying all Oilers fans, but if there's Oilers fans out there who have the mindset of like we can only win with a healthy McDavid is insane. Like obviously McDavid's the best player in the world, but when you've got guys like Bouchard, Ekholm, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Kane, and it's like basically being like, well, we're winning now because McDavid's healthy again. It's like
Yeah.
you guys should be able to be a competent team and win without McDavid because
He
you've
was
got
also putting
arguably the
up
second best player in the league.
and we act like McDavid was missing during that time. He was putting up around a point per game. Woe is him, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I
What
just
a
thought it was
bum.
interesting that it's like, geez, Nugent Hopkins was built up. I didn't even mention Zach Hyman either.
Yeah.
But it's like Nugent Hopkins was built up to be this superstar after putting up 100 points and then obviously like just all those other guys. And it's like you should still be able to win even if McDavid's out of the lineup completely.
Yeah.
But
Or
yeah, I
at
mean,
least not be bottom 2 in the league.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean, good on Edmonton for throwing together an 8-game win streak and immediately putting themselves back up into the hunt there for the playoffs. Now, I don't think they're in a playoff spot currently as of this moment, but they're right back up there in the hunt now.
They are not, because there would be both wild cards would go to the Western Conference, but
Central Division.
I'd say they're in 4th in the Pacific, but Edmonton, Calgary, and Seattle all have 27 points.
San Jose is not too far behind.
21. They're really not.
Actually, within the last 10 games total from like each team. San Jose's got the 8th best record.
6-2-2. Yeah.
And they're on a bit of a roll right now. I mean, they're not gonna make the playoffs, like obviously, but it's nice to see them.
But they got something going on. They're cooking.
The thing I'm basically just happy about more than anything is just like, and again, it's like, okay, yeah, they're not bottom of the league. They don't have the best odds at the first overall pick. We still got to think, even if you're the bottom team, there's still a 75% chance you don't get that first overall pick. Like, sure, you've got the best odds of
You've
getting
got the
it.
best single odds, but you versus the field is pretty bad still.
Yeah, and it's like more than anything with the Sharks, it's just like the players that we've mentioned before that could get moved. It's just their trade value is increasing, which is just going to bring back more picks and prospects, which I think is good, and especially in a draft where like we all kind of know who's going first overall, but you can make the argument that it kind of seems like any guy in the top 4 could go number 1. Like it's not like it's a Matthews, a Jack Hughes. Like it's not one guy head and shoulders above the rest. It's one guy above the group, but it's not by that much.
Yeah, it's more of a I don't know if it's appropriate to say a Shane Wright situation, because he looked like the general number 1 pick going into the draft.
Yeah, for like the 2 years leading up to that draft, even.
Yeah,
it was like years in advance.
3 days before the draft, and even then, he was still assumed to go first. But there had been rumors.
Quickly, just to rattle some off, because I think we missed them at the beginning here.
Sure.
Matt Duchene played in his 1000th game. Connor Hellebuck hit 250 career wins. And the other night, John Tavares hit 1,000 career points, doing it on Long Island, getting an assist on the tying goal with, I think it was like 6 seconds left or something.
I think so.
And Toronto immediately got the clearance from the refs, like, yeah, you can go on the ice and celebrate. And so that was kind of a big FU to Islanders fans, but then all was saved when immediately in overtime, the new stars there for them, Barzell with a beautiful pass to Horvat for the overtime winner to put a little bit of a damper on it for the Leafs. I mean, Tavares hit 1,000 points. Leafs got 1 point out of the game. So, and it was also during the dad's trip. So all the dads were there, including Tavares' dad. So they all got to witness that and be a part of that moment too, which has got to be pretty special.
Yeah. Sticking with the Leafs,
more successful than the Blackhawks mom's trip. Just wanted to throw that in there.
Oh man, one of these days we'll hear about what he did. I'm sure it'll come out.
We will. We never will.
The Blue Jackets won in OT against Toronto just last night after blowing a 5-goal lead in the third period. It was 5-0 in the third, and they came back to make it 5-5. And it looked like the Blue Jackets were going to blow it before Ken Johnson snipes bar down in overtime. Beautiful shot.
Yeah.
He never thought about passing it. He walked in on the right side and just bar down ski.
That's huge for them, though. Like, I didn't see anyone really talking about, but my immediate thought was, like, this is a guy who, I think he played, like, all of last season with the Blue Jackets. And then to start the season wasn't doing very well. He got sent down to the minors. You got to think that's kind of crushing for a guy's confidence. But when he's out there in overtime like that and all the pressure's on them, we can't blow this and lose now after being up 5-0. For him to have the confidence to walk in and take that shot and put it away, like that shows that his confidence is not
that's the killer
is not diminished or anything. Like it's still there.
Yeah. And not to make everything about the Lightning, but that was big that they could come back against Toronto there in OT, because I'm looking at it right now. Tampa, after their win in Edmonton, is the only team with a W beside their streak. Every other team in the Atlantic right now has lost their most recent game or recent 2 games. So
Oh, wow.
last night we made up a little bit of ground, which is good because we need to. We just played a lot of games at the start of the year. Us and Seattle are the only two teams to play 31 games so far. The Senators are at 24. Like,
Yeah.
bro, schedule these guys some freaking games.
Tough when the arena's in the middle of fucking nowhere. It's tough to get teams out there, I guess.
yeah, it's they want to do it when the flights are cheaper after Christmas.
Yeah.
I also just want to shout out Vasilevsky real quick, who had an expected goals against last night of 6.2, of around 6.2, and he's kept it to 4. That game easily could have been an 8-5 loss. He absolutely robbed the Oilers' power play on 20 different occasions. I think the final count was 59 shots against, or 57 shots against.
57.
Yeah.
My biggest thing was Tampa Bay having 10 shots in the third period and 5 goals. Like, I know
Two
2
of
are
them
empty
two
netters,
were empty netters,
but still, you think
but
about before that, they had 3 goals on 8 shots. Like, it's
yeah,
like,
uh,
oh,
it's not quite as bad as when we beat up on Carolina, but yeah, they got goalied by themselves and by us for sure.
yeah. I saw you just threw something in. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So Ryan Reeves during the Blue Jackets game last night left with a leg injury.
And then fell. Did you see that video?
Yeah, he's certainly not beating the allegations of not being a great skater. He skated into the boards and dude, he looked like a 5-year-old. He
Oh no,
didn't
I meant what
turn to
happened
stop.
after.
No, yeah, I'm just talking about the injury that
Oh
he
yeah,
just kind of glided into the boards at speed, didn't turn, didn't brace. He just went in knees first and then fell over. It probably messed up his knees or his ankles or something. And on his way out, the trainers are helping him walk, and I guess they have a couple steps down to get into their tunnel. And the trainers stopped holding him, and then he fell down a couple of stairs. They just like let go of him, and
he
he's
just
going
tumbled.
downstairs with a recently injured leg.
Yeah,
It was so. Hopefully he's doing all right.
yeah. Because
We'll see
remember,
if they feel like bringing him back even when he
Leafs got
comes
2
back.
more years of his contract after this year. They got him on that
Yeah.
3-year deal, so
Well, he's really good at controlling the music in the locker room, don't you know?
yeah. Those are key guys you need.
But
Did
yeah,
you have anything
hopefully that's
else?
not too
I
bad.
don't.
All I have left, I guess, I'll just run through some of the player stat leaders real quick.
Okay.
In first for points in the league, Kucherov reaching 50 points last night. In second, we got JT Miller with 43, and in third, we have Nathan McKinnon with 41. Normally, I only do the top 3, but for those wondering, Connor McDavid has 40 in fourth. For goals, we got Austin Matthews in first with 23, Brock Besser in second with 22, and Nikita Kucherov in third with 20. Plus minus, we got Quinn Hughes with 25, Philip Hronik with 21, and Barkov with 19. Looks like Makar is completely off this plus minus list for the time being. The entire list only being the top 5 in the league, so woe was him at 6 probably.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to do goals against average. That's a team stat. We just do save percentage here. Aiden Hill has a 935. Jeremy Swayman has a 933. And Charlie Lindgren has a 929. Are any of them their team starters? Is Aiden Hill?
Yeah, Hill is.
Okay.
Well, people argue he's kind of in a tandem. Like, he has been injured late.
It's a
Like, he hasn't
very
played since
strange
November.
situation in Vegas with goalies.
Yeah, he hasn't played since November 30th due to injury. So then, and Swayman's him and Allmark, they're a tandem. They go back and forth.
Yeah.
And I bet, but Lindgren, he's backup for the
For
Caps.
Kemper, right? Kemper is
Yeah,
still over there
still doing his thing.
doing his thing. And then for wins, for goalies, we have Demko at Vancouver with 15, and then tied for second, we got Hellebuck and Gorgiev for Winnipeg and Colorado with 14 apiece. So things are heating up around the league.
Oh, I can finally do it. I could finally do it. I can finally do it.
Oh,
Breaking news. I just saw
currently
this now. Things are getting worse for Columbus. Forward Patrick Laine has suffered a fractured clavicle and is out for
Ooh,
6 weeks. So things
yikes!
just keep getting worse for the BJs.
That's tough.
Damn, we haven't had breaking news in a while. That was sick.
That was some sick new breaking news.
Oh, I got one more thing actually. I almost forgot it, but this is big stuff.
We got big stuff going
So
on.
have you heard of what's happening a little bit with the Colorado Avalanche?
I don't believe so.
Cool. All right. So I don't know the full exact details of like what questions were specifically asked. So the other night, Mikko Rantanen had a pretty good good game for the Avs, and I don't know the exact question he was asked after the game that prompted this response. But Mikko Rantanen's response to having a good game and whatnot was basically being like, yeah, I stepped up and got it done because one of our Finnish NHL players' dads was talking shit about me. So he's referring to Arturi Lekkonen's dad, who's a Finnish announcer, who it sounds like he made some comments about Rantanen not pulling his weight for the team and uh just not living up to what he should be doing for the team. And so Rantanen's kind of throwing a shot back at him and also
Yeah,
kind of calling out his teammate. Like he could have just like it was more so the fact that he said one of our Finnish NHL players' dads, and then people were very quickly like could be like to link who it was and whatnot. And so it's
yeah.
like that's it's kind of interesting to see what kind of tension that might create within the locker room. Uh, if
Do you know
you've
what
got one player,
nationality Rantanen is?
he's also Finnish,
Oh,
which I
he
think is
is.
what prompted
Okay.
the comments from Lekkonen's dad.
Okay.
Which
I thought
it's
he might have been like Swedish, and it was one of those like kind of
oh no,
rivalry things over there.
no. So that's interesting. We haven't really ever seen something like that where an NHL player calls out one of their teammates' parents.
Yeah.
I mean, with Chicago, we've seen players take their other players' parents out for dinner or something. Maybe we don't know, but
Just dinner, just a friendly dinner in Nashville.
yeah, yeah, it was for sponsors, like being a gentleman. But yeah, it's a really interesting situation. We've never really seen anything like this happen before.
Yeah, absolutely. It's if I'm Lekkonen, I'm going to my dad and I'm going, dude, you need to shut the fuck up. This dude's a meal ticket. Like, we want Rantanen. We don't win a cup if Rantanen's not firing on all cylinders. Like, stop whatever you're doing to piss him off. Because
Or do you be like, hey, dad, fucking wind him up more? Look at the way he's playing now. He's playing out of he's been lighting it up as of late. So maybe he's like, keep winding him up and let's just watch him put the team on his back.
maybe I don't. I always think when people play the mind games like that, it's not super sustainable. So maybe if this was going on in the second or third round of the playoffs, I'd agree. But at game 30 in the regular season, I think.
And those comments were also made when Random was still above a point per game. Like, it wasn't by a lot, but he was still playing it above a point per game.
Yeah,
So, and I mean, McKinnon, Makar, and Rantanen are clear above the rest of the Avalanche team in terms of points. Like, they really
yeah,
rely on those three to carry the load. Like,
absolutely.
that's kind of what it is now with Landeskog out. But yeah, it's just an interesting scenario. We've never seen anything quite like that before.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time a guy called out one of his teammates' parents. That's really
Yeah.
interesting, and we'll see if it develops any further than that.
Also, shout out to Roberto Luongo, who was inducted into the Canucks Ring of Honor last night. They waited till, which I thought was cool. They waited until the Florida Panthers came into town to take on the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah,
What was also really
that's
cool
really
is
cool.
Thatcher Demko put up a 36 save shutout on the night.
Doesn't my fantasy team know it?
Bobrovsky struggled a bit, allowing 4 goals on 17 shots.
Including one really bad giveaway.
Yeah.
Puck got iced. He grabbed it down just in front of the goal line in the corner and just passed it tape to tape to an open Canucks player in Dakota Joshua, I think. Right in the slot. Like that was. There has never been a more free goal in the NHL.
Yeah. The one thing I thought that was kind of weird, though, is it's not a jersey retirement. Like, Luongo's not getting his jersey retired with the
Yeah,
Canucks.
I think some teams are too stingy with that. Like, I get it. You don't want to retire every guy who comes through, but Roberto Luongo, like, was the heart and soul of the Canucks for a good bit there. Wasn't he captain for a bit?
Yeah, which was actually my next thing was the Sedins actually presented Luongo with a Canucks jersey that finally had the C on it.
Oh,
Because
that's
he
cool.
wasn't able to actually wear the C on his jersey. So they presented him with a
That's
jersey
awesome.
that has it on there. Second of all, realistically, he was number one. That's a goalie number. Do the Canucks really think that, oh, we're going to have another goalie come in and be bigger and better than Luongo and wear the number one? No.
Exactly. Like
Like,
it's I don't think teams should be making the decision based on are we going to run out of numbers? Is this I think at the end of the day it should be next time you see somebody wearing that number, does it give you ick? Do you feel wrong seeing somebody else wear it? You know?
yeah. Yeah,
Like
it's like as a Sharks fan, I could never uh I know Marlowe's number 12 is retired, and I'm assuming Joe Thornton's will
it
be
better
now
be.
that he's officially retired. But it's like I could never imagine any player on the Sharks coming out wearing number 19. It'd be like,
No.
what are you doing, dude? Like,
No, we'd fly down there and run them out of the building ourselves. Like
yeah, we'd pull up St. Louis Blues and just fucking boo them. Yeah, which I thought was weird, but I thought it was cool that the Sedins presented him with uh, the jersey with the C on it. He got to do the ceremonial puck drop, which was taken place by not the captains, but by Bobrovsky and Demko, which I thought was a
yeah,
nice little touch to it.
that was cool.
So good for Luongo.
Yeah, good for Bobby Lou. I
Yeah,
mean, everyone even close to hockey seems to love the dude. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if he's ever taken a picture where he doesn't have the biggest smile in the world.
yeah. Actually, I just want to find here just to double check. Um,
Yeah, because
wasn't
that's
wasn't
about all I
Bobrovsky the kind of the guy that ran him out of Florida? Because wasn't
I
Luongo still signed with Florida, and then they went out and signed Bobrovsky to that big
I
deal? I might be wrong, but
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure he had moved on or retired by the time they
it
signed
was
him.
within the same year.
It was that close, huh?
I do know that because let's see. So that was in that. So I pull up that year. Yeah, yeah. The 2018-19 season, Luongo was their starter, and then the following year it was Bobrovsky. So
Yep.
I could be
Yep.
wrong. I don't know if those two had anything to do with it, but that's kind of funny that
Yeah. He kind of replaced him, but he didn't run him out of town. He was signed on
yeah,
on July 1st of 2019.
yeah.
So
That, that's crazy. Thinking back at that now, looking back at the whole, just that constant talk in Vancouver for years of, oh, they've got Luongo and Schneider. What are they going to do? Going back and forth, and then it's like, you know, they're both retired now and out of the league, and it's like
meanwhile, they've got
that's
Demko,
crazy.
who is probably the leading Vezina candidate at the moment.
Yeah, and the two big pieces they uh got back in the trades for Luongo and Schneider both aren't even on the team anymore.
What did they get back for them?
Markstrom's uh the Canucks got, I think Gabranson was also part of it, but I think the big part of the Luongo trade was Markstrom, and then the Corey Schneider one was a first round pick from the Devils on draft day, which was used to draft Bo Horvat.
Damn.
And no Blues fans, that's not Boo Horvat, it's Bo Horvat. Get it right.
We're booing Horvat.
Fuck, I can just
Man,
dunk on the Blues so much now. I love it.
I cannot believe how good Vancouver's had it with goalies for the last
Yeah.
15 years. Roberto Luongo, Corey Schneider, Markstrom, and now Thatcher Demko.
They're right up there with the Rangers.
Yeah.
You go from Henrik Lundqvist to Shesterkin, like
Yeah, we went from Ben Bishop to Vasilevsky, but I mean before that was an absolute wasteland.
Holmquist.
We
Legend.
dude, until Ben Bishop got good, we didn't have a goalie that in any of the NHL video games was their overall never started with an 8 or a higher.
Yeah.
They were always in 70 something.
And that was still too high. They were being generous.
Mike Smith probably deserved an 80 or a 79 or something, but the rest of them were like sub
Oh
80.
yeah. Mike Smith,
A
yeah.
lot of them. Dwayne Rollison had some good years, I guess.
But with that, do you have anything left to
No,
plug in?
I think that covers a whole bunch of it. Barring any more illness, we'll probably be doing another midweek episode this coming Monday or whenever we put that out. But that remains to be seen.
Yeah. There's a lot of games this weekend, so there'll probably be lots of stuff to talk about. We do have something big planned coming up. We are not going to share it right now because we love cliffhangers. But everybody will know within no time of what that is. So make sure to look forward to that because we are very excited for that and we are very excited to share it with the rest of you. But thanks again to everybody for listening to another episode of the Stick 'em Up podcast. Hopefully your favorite hockey podcast. If not, well, sucks to be us. As always, if you want to join in on conversations with us, you can find us over on Instagram and or Twitter/X at SEU Hockey. We are getting a lot more active over on the Twitter, not as much on the Instagram right now, but again, feel free to, shoot us a message on either of them, say hi, and again, let us know what you want us to talk about because we always miss stuff because there is always a lot going on. Even if you just want us to talk about your team, just be like, hey, I'm a fan of the Arizona Coyotes. I'm a diehard Yotes fan. Like, can you just talk about the team and their season? And we'll gladly do
at
that.
minimum, we can set aside 5-10 minutes at some point in the episode.
Yeah.
We can talk about your team. Like there's 32 teams. We talk a decent bit about the Sharks and the Lightning, and then most of the Canadian teams. So it if you want to call us out, hey, you haven't talked about the Wild in forever, let us know, and we'll break down what's going on with them lately.
Yeah, exactly. But with that, thanks again for listening, and we will catch all of you in the next one.